Okay, it is now, let's see, about 20 minutes of 1. We're going to begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I will ask you to join me and the other commissioners in a moment of silence while we reflect upon the sacrifices that are being made by our armed forces, and also reflect upon people who are in want at this time of year. Thank you very much. The agenda today is, we start with public comment, and we are expecting a visit not from Santa Claus but from Dan Wolf. However, the attitude about our public officials would be that they would have that generous spirit of sharing in regard to whatever's left. However, those of us who read the Cape Cod Times this morning saw that we are in dire straits. It's not a group from the 80s.
Right.
Okay, but since we're starting with public comment, do any of the assembled multitudes have anything to offer?
No.
And since we're sort of filling in,
right.
I'd
rather not say. No. I've just been. I've been busy.
Busy.
I met with the Board of Selectmen last night in Wellfleet. They had invited Paul Pilcher to come and talk about the wind standards that were put before the Assembly. So I was asked to join in and just sort of give, what the reasoning was behind those standards and why they were there weren't tighter thresholds, which is what the Assembly was looking for. And basically, they were standards put in place to have standards because they were projects that are brought before the Commission and they have no standards of which to look at these projects, so they need some sort of guidelines to approach them, and then they were going to be working on thresholds in unison with, as they were working out the standards and the regulations or the thresholds for the ocean. They were going to do that in tandem. So they figured they would have more tighter thresholds and regulations by the summer, but the Assembly wanted something a little bit more specific and concrete, and there's a debate on whether that's a good thing or not, but regardless, they are reconvening in January, the Planning and Regulatory Board, and they're going to revisit the issue. So that's basically what the conversation was about.
Okay, and no doubt Paul, since he was there at at that discussion, might have reported what Paul in his wiki said, which is you really have to have an ordinance in place before you can write a technical bulletin.
Exactly, but they don't see that doesn't seem to be quite understood. The other thing is there is even more interest from the town of Wellfleet for considering a DCPC. That was just a discussion. Not that they wanted to make. They didn't make any
DCPC with regard
with wind turbines on land.
Okay, so the cruise ship that we're planning to park off of in Wellfleet Harbor with the 1,000 wind turbine is not going to fly?
Well, they'd like to take a little pause. Some people would. That was some of the public's comment. The Board of Selectmen do not want to make any decision on that. I think they're going to invite some members of the Commission down next month and discuss the pros and cons of such an action.
Was the Cape Cod Commission member from Wellfleet there as well?
Yes, Roger Putnam was there. So the three of us were there, like
good old Roger.
Like just three dumplings.
Yes. What did Roger have to say?
Roger just felt that he concurred that the standards should have been more specific. However, I think he was kind of talking about the ocean DCPC and some of the issues. He was kind of crossing a little bit of lines, but on the whole, he was just taking a look at his. He was saying how he felt about it and how he voted.
Did he vote for it?
I believe he did not.
Did not, okay. Well,
I think he was the only one that didn't, as it went through the commission, the Cape Cod Commissioners.
Steve Roger was so consistent. I remember when I sat next to him when I was in the assembly.
Yeah,
I could always count on him to take the contrarian position.
Yes.
Anything else?
But with reason.
Yeah, well.
Roger has very...
Roger is an
knows
amazing
why
guy.
he is doing what he's doing.
He certainly does, certainly does. Was there anything else?
I would, no. And just, other discussions about, pesticides. I've been talking to people about that. But
Oh, yeah, you've got, folks should, especially these folks should know that there's a meeting on Friday.
On Friday.
Vegetation management. Unfortunately,
9 o'clock.
I have another commitment to go. I'm on the search committee for the Arts Foundation, and we're having our second round of interviews on Friday. And I won't be able to go to that. I was looking forward to it because I think we have to come to some sort of...
yes, and I think there is going to be quite a discussion on Friday. And it is going to be more of a working, I'm not sure if there's going to be much of a public comment on that one. Anyway...
So I guess you have been busy.
I have been busy. I'm sure there's other things I could report on, but they'll come to me, and I'll, if they're worth anybody's while, I'll be happy to share them. Other than just doing my own fact-finding and research and stuff.
Okay.
I would be happy to move the summary of actions if...
Okay, do you have a copy of...
I believe I do.
I don't see anything in here.
I read them, but I don't seem to have them right in front of me.
Yeah, you take a look at my copy.
Thank you. Just, I didn't see anything that that stuck out to me. Was there anything you had a question?
No, I did not.
Okay, so...
Okay, one other piece of... okay, so you want to make that motion?
I will move to accept the summary of actions.
Okay, and I'll second that, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
And I can start to sign those, but since Larry and Andrew were here, and Beth, I did tell Beth that some of the discussion was going to be around suicide prevention, so I thought she might want to be
Okay,
here.
we did get a note from Diane Casey Lee saying she was not coming at 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or not coming because of another conflict.
That is good.
So that would mean that we don't have to be here for that. Was there any other comment, public comment?
Well, the only thing we have, I mean, we've got budget discussions or hearing with the Assembly this afternoon on the funding of the legal reserves, both for the county portion and the commission's portion. The request that was filed with the committee, and then ideally advancing to the full Assembly for their consideration. If the committee is amenable to the request, was $50,000 for the county side, $50,000 for the commission. We had some discussions and there was some confusion about the exact amount. I think it's appropriate that we stay with what's requested and properly noticed before the Assembly right now. The reality is that if the suits are activated and we have to get into a more rigorous litigation position before the end of the fiscal year, and it looks like we're going to exhaust the cumulative $100,000, and we can come back. If things stay similar to where they are now, the $100,000 ought to be sufficient to get us through the fiscal year. For both the Commission and the Collaborative are incorporating a more expansive request for funding explicitly into the budgets that are being submitted on Friday for next fiscal year, so you will have an opportunity to review that in some detail. So I think if we leave the 50 the way it's requested, we're fine. So I think that's the way I would recommend that we could proceed with the Assembly discussion this afternoon. And then also in your packet for action today, the contract document with Anderson Krieger. So it asks that that you execute those. It follows along with it's consistent with the previous actions that you've taken to date on that, and that sort of closes the loop and brings that part of the discussion to a close. That's all we got.
Okay, and as I heard you say, I Are you talking about increasing the legal reserve or specifically allocating funding?
It's allocating funding from the reserve to this purpose.
For this purpose? Okay. We have not heard anything from these people.
We have not.
All right, so.
And I think, one way to look at that is, I think the nature of and the strength of the and comprehensiveness of the response that we were able to file to the 60-day notice, I think, gave pause to the potential plaintiffs to decide maybe they might not want to pursue this perhaps the way they had, or, so I think some of the silence is the fact that we put together a very compelling argument in support of our position. So in that sense, I think it was a very good investment of the time and the effort involved to give CLF and Buzzards Bay some reason to maybe rethink what they were contemplating doing to us.
Just speaking personally, I would like to support that speculation. Silence is silence.
Silence is silence, but that's my line. I'm sticking to it at the moment.
All right, okay. So anything else?
No.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Not right now.
Okay. Anybody else? John?
I was actually listening to Andy about this. I just wanted a little more clarification.
Sure.
And that's good. I mean,
good?
Yeah. We'll handle it 3:15.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
And I'll be there. Yeah.
Is Mark Selesky going to be there? Are you going to?
No, I'm not going to.
Mark is on his way to a meeting with regard to the pension fund, or I was with Nantucket to make a presentation. Okay. Perhaps we could, since Dan Wolf isn't here, perhaps we could start with the update on what do you have to offer us? Did you have something on the Human Rights Commission, or were we going to wait till
The Human Rights Commission is scheduled, I think, at
2?
2
At
o'clock.
2. They have representatives coming
And
in
they're
too.
coming in at that time. They have new representatives they want to introduce us to, I believe.
The current chair, Elizabeth Goldberg, is coming, and I think they wanted the opportunity to provide you an update on their activities of the past year. And I think they also are going to put forth 2 names of representation for the Health and Human Service Advisory Committee.
Wait a minute, I don't understand what that means.
I saw that in the minutes. I'm not quite sure. I think we're looking for nominations for representatives and alternates from the Human Rights Commission and many of the other coalitions and networks.
Okay, so you're
That sit on
looking
the
for a person to be representing the Human Rights Commission
on the Health and Human Services Advisory Council. Yeah, but that needs to come from our department to you formally for appointment.
So you haven't seen the minutes?
I think they may have been contained in an email, but I don't recall who it was.
All right, well, I'm going to suggest at this point then that perhaps we might go into recess until the senator shows up. Unless you had something to offer, Beth, in
No.
public comment, and then that way we're not posing for animal crackers.